Hey everyone, welcome once again to Pathways of Hope. My name is Jake Tan and I'll be giving today's meditation. I just want to take this opportunity to greet everyone a happy Easter. And we're looking at another account when Jesus reveals himself to the disciples. It's one of the latter ones, and this comes from today's gospel passage, John 21, verses 1 to 14. Verses 1 to 14. And it's quite powerful, this story. There's a lot of detail in it. You know, from the number of fish that were caught to the distance that the disciples on the shore traversed to get to the boat. And I won't be able to cover, or I don't plan to cover on all those details with this reflection, but just point out something to think about, one aspect to think about, especially as we ponder this Easter period and how Jesus presents himself with the disciples today or in this passage. And for me, it's quite striking how there's a lot of similarity between this passage and how the disciples were called. So, we see how it starts where the disciples or the apostles, they're in Galilee. So when it talks about the Sea of Tiberias, it's actually the Sea of Galilee. It's another name for it. And, they're together, and Simon Peter says, I'm going to go fishing. And it starts in the evening. So that's evening. And they fish all night, but they catch nothing. So, sounds familiar. And the next day, as they're returning, they see somebody on the shore. And, the Gospel of John says that's Jesus already. And he says, put down your nets for a catch on the other side, on the right side. And when that happens, they haul in a lot of fish, or it's overwhelming. And, the disciple whom Jesus loved, that's John, he shouts right away, or he tells Peter rather right away, it's the Lord. And the first thing that Peter does is that he jumps out of the boat, he puts on a shirt, and then he jumps out of the boat towards Jesus. And I think that's quite significant. It's quite powerful, because I think the point of Peter doing that was so he was sure he could be in contact with Christ. He wouldn't lose him, like Jesus wouldn't disappear, I suppose. That's my initial thought about it. Why? Because later when Peter gets to Jesus, he sees him by a charcoal fire, and then, he already has fish and some bread, and he tells Peter, go bring some of the fish that you just caught back here. So what does that mean? It's like Peter went back to the boat anyway. Why did he jump out first and go to Jesus? And perhaps it was to receive that instruction, to get that guarantee that, okay, Jesus is gonna stick around. Not that, whatever Peter would have done would make Jesus stick around, because, last time when he appeared to the apostles in the closed room, he just vanished before their eyes as well. But I think there was some sort of desperation or just eagerness in Peter to encounter Christ. And, we can see that with this disposition. Maybe he felt idle being in Galilee waiting for Jesus to come again. And then he's like, okay, I'll go fishing. And many Bible scholars say that, okay, when he says that, when they do that, they're reverting back to a occupation or a task that they did before the ministry of Christ, around 3 years ago. And when Jesus appears again and talks to them later on, we see that most likely in the next day's chapter when, we have that, the forgiveness that Jesus gives to Peter, or challenges him about love. Before we get there, Jesus is using this period to kind of bring them back and say, like, no, you're not going back to your old ways. In fact, I've still called you to be fishers of men. Some scholars say that even the catch, when they say 153 fish, it's just a way of describing how these apostles, are still tasked to be fishers of men, and that they will really bring the good news to all sorts of people and of different backgrounds, of different kinds, and that the gospel will be made known throughout all the world. And I think the one point that I want to drive here is that it's important to always remember how Christ has called each and every one of us to be his own. And I don't know how that resonates with all of us as we listen to this video. Maybe you think about it like, have I ever been even called by Christ? But for some of us, when we made a personal commitment to follow him, I think the Lord's inviting us to always remember that moment, to remember that instance. Just the same way that this entire passage kind of resembles when the first apostles were called catching fish, and that miracle happened where they hauled in a lot of fish onto their boat after listening to some carpenter on the shore. Here, it's the same thing happening over again, and they recognize it much faster, and they're quick to revert from their old ways and continue to embrace what the Lord has called us to be, called us to do. And I think that's really beautiful, where God's call for us remains the same, but it's so important and so relevant that we always go back to how He has called us. And for some of us who might not be able to resonate with that, as I said a while ago, I invite you, take some time to pray. Take some time to really consider what it means to make a personal commitment to Christ, to make Him your Lord and your all. And we pray that you also have that opportunity. And allow the Lord to really speak to us in this season of renewal, of restoration, of forgiveness, of salvation, and how He just rules over all of our hardships. And He doesn't want us, again, reverting to our old ways before we knew Him. And He wants us to continue to embrace Him and to be with Him forever. And that we can come and experience Him to His fullness, even after death, in this season where life really has the last say. So that's it. That's all I want to leave us with this point of reflection. Thank you so much for listening, for taking some time here at Pathways of Hope. And God bless you in this Easter season. If you found this reflection insightful, helpful, you can share it, you can follow the page, and more to come. God bless us all.